Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
Money FM 89.3. Now, 16 billion credentials. That's how many stolen usernames and passwords are now circulating on the dark web. You heard me right. A week ago, if you haven't heard, cybersecurity researchers discovered what could be the mother of all data breaches. A set of 30 databases containing a total of 16 billion records from a wide range of providers, including Apple, Google, Telegram, and many more. Now, this leak was not from a single breach, but compiled from years of stealthy malware activity. It's not a new headline, but it is a new level of risk. Welcome to Industry Insight. I'm Lynn Lee, and today we're looking beyond the breach to explore the real threat, identity-based cyber attacks. Our guest is Bernard Montel, Technical Director and Security Strategist at Tenable, who will walk us through why identities are now the new perimeter and why businesses need to think differently about exposure, privilege, and credentials. Bernard, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone.
All right, I know you're in France, so it will be good morning to you.
Yes, it is.
All right, now, first off, that 16 billion figure is extremely worrying. Now, this has been reported widely, but many headlines have missed a key point. This wasn't a new breach. So what exactly are we dealing with?
Yes, it's not a new breach, but, it's the kind of mega compilation of many breaches, as you just presented before. Mm-hmm. And, we are dealing with that big impact of having a lot of information together. It's been years that we thought about having such kind of a big compilation coming together. And the impact is bigger because, now attackers can get access to our personal life and a lot of information into one place. Sometimes a breach of your email address only or your phone number only. And can you imagine someone having access to one place into everything or most of the thing around your personal life? And that's exactly what's happened today. It's a gold mine for attackers.
So even if someone's company wasn't recently hacked, their credentials could still be in there?
Yes. If you don't have been breached recently, but some of your employees' data has been breached by other breaches in the past, they can be there. And there is always a link between personal information that has been linked and corporate information as well. I'm belonging to an organization, you are, and a lot of people are belonging to, obviously, some organizations. That information could have been linked.
Okay. And with tools like automated scripts, these attackers can test millions of stolen logins in seconds, can't they?
Of course, automation is something which is used by attackers. They are developing a lot of tools, and as you said, script. They can test automatically. They can ping a lot of organizations because now they have a set of passwords, and those passwords most of the times are reused. We are using a set of passwords, but we live in a password world today. So we have a lot of accounts, we have a lot of applications, and sometimes, those passwords are reused. So attackers are doing the same. They get those passwords and they try it. And instead of doing that manually, they do that, automatically with sometimes even AI that can be used, or by developing those scripts. You don't have to be technical. You just ask an AI to develop that script, and then suddenly you can test it into hundreds and thousands of targets.
Wow. So with this, bigger shift, how should businesses be looking at cybersecurity?
So they need to have a very different approach than they currently have today. Most of the times, businesses are looking after protecting and putting walls and detecting attacks. But when you detect an attack, most of the time it's a little bit too late. It's the majority of the time I'm making that analogy, which is you are protecting your house and you have an alarm system, but you don't leave the doors open. So they need to think more proactively with prevention. They need to be sure that the doors are closed, the windows are closed. And by the way, in the case of passwords, we don't leave the key in the door. So this is a brand new approach they need to have. We call that exposure management. Looking after exposures they could have and closing the doors really proactively. So yes, they need to shift to a proactive approach.
But how do we do that? Because we're now pretty much in a cloud-first and sometimes remote work world.
Or we are in a hybrid world, cloud first, that's definitely, but we still have on-prem solutions, and that is even more complex. Most of the organizations thought going to the cloud would be simple, and even simplest from a security standpoint. Going to the cloud is not more secure because it's much more complex. We have different cloud providers. We have a lot of applications. The infrastructure, sometimes we don't even understand the infrastructure of the cloud because it is a lot of complexity. So going to the cloud first, we need to rethink completely the security, and we need to have a full visibility of all of those services running to the cloud and all of those configurations and vulnerabilities and obviously identity configurations going to the cloud, because that is where the complexity is going. So we have to have, again, a proactive approach to understand the attack surface, to understand if there is any risk from an exposure standpoint going to the cloud.
Yeah, because these attackers don't actually need to break a firewall.
Oh no, if you leave them the key, they don't even hack anymore. And that is why that big database of 16 billion of credentials is something huge. Because, an attacker, I'm used to say there is only three ways to compromise the system. Or through a vulnerability, or through a misconfiguration, someone has, made a mistake on a configuration, or through an identity. And if they get that third one, that is super simple. You just have to log in. That is the first step. After the login, there is in corporate enterprise, your rights, your authorization, your privilege. So it's not only the key, to go back to the analogy of the house. When you open a door into an organization, after that, you should have a control. And then that is where, the organization need to think about.
Okay. Now let's talk about exposure management. It's not a term many of us outside the cybersecurity field are familiar with. How is it different from traditional vulnerability scanning?
So exposure management is the evolution of vulnerability management, definitely. And we are used to talk about vulnerability management for decades today. But vulnerability management is just one part of it. Looking after vulnerabilities is looking after bugs or, elements that need a patch to apply.
Right.
That is traditional in cybersecurity. But because the attack surface has evolved dramatically and, has expanded into those three elements I've mentioned today, misconfiguration, identity, and overprivileged, we need to think widely. We need to have a full capacity of the visibility of the attack surface from an exposure standpoint. And again, vulnerability is only part of it. When you go to the cloud, vulnerabilities, and the key it's one of the elements, but misconfiguration and the complexity of identities and privileges and authentication, and it's another part of that. It's not part of vulnerability management. It's part of what we call exposure management. Having the full visibility of your exposures across the attack surface, to the cloud, to the OT system, to many kind of places, that is what we call exposure management. Again, it's an evolution of vulnerability management, but in a much broader way, and having the full capacity of understanding the full attack surface from an exposure standpoint and from a risk attached to the exposures.
So it's really like what you mentioned earlier, it's a shift from reactive defense to proactive prevention.
Exactly. If you can reduce the risk proactively, you will have less alerts and less incidents. So that has an impact as well to the reactive way organizations are used to run it today. And again, that is reducing the risk within the attack surface proactively.
So for businesses listening today, especially those without massive security teams, what's one immediate action they should be taking?
They should look after understanding, who has access to what, the privileges. They can reduce that by having that visibility they don't have. At Tenable, we are providing a set of tools and technologies. We also have a platform for smaller organizations where they can bring together, vulnerabilities, identities, and cloud, and sometimes for industrial companies as well, OT systems. We can collect and get those informations into one place instead of have many. The challenge with organizations and smaller organizations, as you said, they don't have the team to deploy, 10 tools. So having only one platform can help them having that visibility of exposures proactively. So by consolidating many other tools into one place, that is helping organizations that are having not a lot of teams, a lot of people being able to manage all of those elements one by one.
Okay. And there seems to be a lot of buzz around pass keys these days and going passwordless. Are we finally at the point where that's viable for businesses?
We're going to zero trust and identity first. I think, as you said at the beginning, that identity is the last lane of defense. So yes, there are technologies that are passwordless. Yes, we need to implement multi-factor authentication. That is key element for most of the organizations, at least for privileged accounts. But sometimes we leave passwords to non-privileged accounts, but we leave them access to some important applications. So if you leave password and you do not manage overprivileged access, then this is where the danger can be, because we think only about doing passwordless and multi-factor authentication to admin accounts, but sometimes we leave admin access to classical identities. So that is where we need to close the gap. You're right on the fact that technologies are going to passwordless, but it's just a trend. We are far from deploying 100% of multi-factor authentication and passwordless.
Okay, I'm just thinking, what about the regulatory landscape? Are governments catching up to this shift?
So, yes, governments all around the world are trying to help organizations to increase their level of security with regulations. But we need to keep in mind that regulations are not doing everything. It's not because you are applying a set of best practices that is 100% security. Again, I think it's important governments help by putting in place some guidance frameworks. We do that all around the world. As you said, I'm located in France, and we have, the European institutions putting in place brand new regulations for critical infrastructures. This is very important, but it's only helping organizations to increase their levels of security, not to have 100%. 100% doesn't exist, but again, regulations doesn't mean full security. It's not because you are checking all of the boxes that you are, living in a super, secure world. You're just making it better, and that everyone need to think about that regulations is not solving the 100% of the problem, it's just helping.
But it's good to know that there's now more awareness, and we're seeing more emphasis on identity governance in cyber regulations, at least. But now, this has been incredibly helpful. Just to wrap up before we let you go, what's one mindset shift you hope business leaders walk away with?
Think proactively, and you have less to think about into detection, and think about exposure management going to the cloud, because this is where the complexity is today.
Okay, powerful insight there. Thank you so much for your time today, Bernard, and appreciate you sharing so much with our listeners at a very, very early hour over in France. Bernard Montel, Technical Director and Security Strategist at Tenable. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.